the sessions so that if you want to access them again, you are able to do that. Poncho will always give you the recordings if you can't find them. Always chat with her on that. Thank you so much. Guys, let me bring your voices in as well. Great to see that you're there. Great to feel the energy. Are there any admin related questions? So we're going to start now with the presentations. I'm going to select one group that's going to present on the task that you guys completed during the week from the workbook. Let's do that and get on with it after that. But I want to check, are there any questions relating to assessments, relating to the journey itself? You might have had a closer look on the briefs for the individual assignment, for the group assignment, and you might have questions regarding that. So are there any questions, guys? Anyone? Just come in. Anyone?
Yes, Mzo, can I please ask for the group assignments, does Syndicate 1 take the topic number 1, or are you going to mix everything up?
Ooh, does Syndicate 1 take topic number 1? I'm not sure what that means. I did show each group last week which topic is allocated to them. I also posted on Sakai the updated topic allocations because we are never sure how many groups we're going to have. Can you paraphrase? I don't understand where the question comes from.
It's okay, Mzo, it's understood.
Regarding syndicate work, she wants to know regarding the topics for our group assignments. That's, I think, where she was coming from.
She wants to know which topic is allocated to which group.
So I know that we're doing a chapter on history and culture, if I'm not mistaken. So that's what I think she was referring to. It's in the yes. So I think, you know, her question's been answered. Because in the introductory letter, it says which syndicate has which topic.
Yes. The letter tells us which syndicate has been allocated which topic. And importantly, last week I took the whole class through the topics and I confirmed what topic belongs to what syndicate. Okay. Any other questions, colleagues? I hope that is answered. If it's not answered, please ask again, guys.
So I just wanted to find out, with regards to the individual and syndicate assignment, is there specific formats that we need to follow? And also for individual, what's the preferred word count, or how many pages are we supposed to complete?
Okay, colleagues. So in front of you, I hope everyone can see my Word document. Thanks for that question. Can everyone see my Word document? I suspect yes. Eh?
Yes.
So what I've got here, yes, colleagues, what I've got is the brief for the individual assignments. I hope everyone has taken time to look at the brief. So there are 2 assignments, and these 2 assignments are following each other. Assignment 2 builds on assignment 1 on the Kodak organization. That is illustration 6.4 in the textbook, and the questions I'm asking are fairly clear, but you might want to ask me if you're not sure. Yeah, guys, and it's more of a report written in Microsoft Word. You can submit in Word, you can submit it as PDF, up to you. When I look at your work on Sakai, I will also look at your scoring in terms of the Turnitin. The standard in many universities is that we don't want to see anything over 15%, 15 in terms of similarity, but you might have been given something else in the orientation. I'm not sure what you were given in the orientation, but in terms of the Harvard approaches and the global benchmarking, when it comes to Turnitin, anything beyond 15% is a concern. So try to be as low as you can. So I'll look at your score to make sure that there's no similarity or too much similarity. Yeah, guys. In terms of guidance on pages, we're looking at plus minus, let's say plus minus 6 to 8 pages, as let's say 6 to 10 pages per assignment in terms of the individual assignments. But I don't want to give too much guidance on this because the issue of quality versus quantity. You might find that for some reason, one comrade has got the assignment in 1 page or 2 page, and when you look at the 2 pages, you're like, wow, where did this come from? Top quality stuff, top notch, but it's only 1 or 2 pages, so that could work. Another comrade gives us 10 pages. They say, 10 pages, yes, there's so much work here. This comrade has done great. Then you look at the work, say, not really what we're looking for, but 10 pages, so that's the issue of quality versus quantity. Oh, it's 10 pages but top quality. That person is likely to kill it and might easily walk away with like 100 or 90% or whatever, or 80 or 75 or whatever it might be. So I'm trying to say we get a mix of contributions from our students, and I don't want to limit you in terms of page numbers, but if you force me, I will say anything between 5-6 pages up to 10. That is what we're looking for. Maybe that's the guidance. Okay, so font size, I will say let's go for 12, 1.5 line spacing. I think that should look professional. Maybe do Arial in terms of font type, Arial or Times New Roman, one of the two. That should look very professional. Yeah. Okay, great. Kagiso?
Thank you. So just clarity, we are in Syndicate 4, and there's a condition there that says should there be a total of 6 groups, then we need to move to outsourcing or vertical integration.
Yeah, my brother, don't even go there because that would have been clarified last week.
Oh.
Remember when I allocated topics last week, I was dealing those issues, including that.
Yeah.
So it then means I will have to go again to the document and take you guys. I don't remember all the topics and who was allocated what. You are challenging me now to redo what we did last week.
No, sir. And apologies for that. Unfortunately, most of my syndicate members, we were late into the session because we had issues with logins.
What happened? What was happening?
We had technical issues in that we were logged in late into the sessions, and when we tried to download the session, there were some challenges. I think I logged also a request to receive the recordings. So apologies for that. Yeah.
Okay, my brother. Then you don't even need to apologize because you were not here. You don't even need to apologize. I'm the one who has to apologize, actually. So let's do it again, but we're going to do it very quickly. Is everyone on the letter, colleagues?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, beautiful. And then remind me how many groups do we have?
We are 8. 8 syndicate groups.
8. Good. Which then means this note does not apply. Can you see? Because
yes,
this was my safety note. Should we have less than 8 groups? Can you see?
Yes, sir.
So the note does not apply, which means the allocations are what they are. Syndicate 1, history and culture. Syndicate 2, leadership and change. Group 3, strategy, competitive strategy and business models. 4, outsourcing versus insourcing. 5, diversification. 6, measures, acquisitions, alliances, a very nice topic. 7 and 8, vertical integration.
Thank you, sir. It clarifies. I appreciate it.
Thank you, sir. Okay, great, guys. That was our colleague from Group 4. By the way, Group 4, there were issues with Group 4. I now remember. There were issues with Group 4. But it's fine. I might want to offline with them because they might not even have gotten a chance to introduce themselves last week. But it's fine. Now I remember. Okay, great. Other questions, guys, before I start? Okay, this is how we're going to be starting our sessions. The first 10 minutes or so will always be used for admin, questions, clarifications, and any other arising matters, right? On your screen, you've got the brief that we received last week, whereby we were challenged to go out and complete the first exercise. In the template, in the workbook, you're basically introducing the organization and also give us a high level on the elements of their strategy. This is a beautiful exercise. Some people have said to me, so isn't this too easy? Isn't this too easy? Yes, it's too easy. But it's our way of bringing everyone to the same page from day one for every colleague in the class to understand the key elements of what goes into strategy using a chosen organization. So it should have been an easy, enjoyable exercise for you as well. So quickly, I want to quickly check, just a quick voice per group. I want to have an idea of which organizations were chosen. And remember, guys, you were not forced to choose from my list. We did say you could come up with whatever else that you might have in mind, but we did encourage you to come up with organizations that are in need of some direction, especially small organizations, struggling organizations, emerging businesses, new or yet to be launched businesses. This morning I was thinking about adding a construction company here because the construction industry is really sweating. The likes of Group 5 have declared bankruptcy. Murray and Roberts has sold its construction arm. WBHO is almost nowhere. I'm sure they've been retrenching and downscaling. So one could argue that it would have been nice to also have one of the construction giants. Or maybe former giants. Maybe that's the right way. Former giants. Okay, guys, what have you chosen? Group one, what have you chosen?
So we decided to choose an online cleaning service known as Sweep South. I'm sure many of you are familiar with the brand.
What are they called? Sweep?
Sweep South.
Okay, Sweep South, beautiful.
Yes.
That's group one. Group two?
We have chosen to go with Batu.
With budget?
Batu.
Oh, Batu, nice. Group three?
We have chosen Choppies.
Choppies, group four?
Yes.
Yes, nice. Group four?
So we've gone with Batu as well.
Batu, nice. Group 5?
Time
Bank, group 6?
Makosa.
Group 7?
Lift,
Group 8?
Kim Price Insurance.
King Price, beautiful colleagues. I'm so happy because of the diversity of the sectors and the industries. We're going to get an opportunity to unpack and possibly hear stories about. So thank you so much. Great choices from the groups. You're most welcome to make the change. Maybe today is the last day to make change, but I won't encourage it. But if you are thinking of it, I would say maybe today is the last day and so on, right? Okay, colleagues, thank you so much. I'm ready then to get going with the planned content for the day. But before I do that, I want to allow at least one group to come in and share with us the high level that they came up with. Guys, which company is most interesting? Which company do you want to hear about now? Which group should we choose?
We'd like to hear about Makosa.
Makosa. Yes. Yes. Others?
Makosa.
Others?
Lift.
I'll take 2 more voices.
Maxhosa.
Maxhosa. Oh, there you go, Maxhosa. Maxhosa, most people, at least a small sample that I tested, wants to hear more about Maxhosa. The group that presented on Maxhosa, I hope you have something prepared. Are you happy to present, Maxhosa?
Yeah, we read him so.
Great, over to you. If you want, you can share screen. That will be very powerful. Share screen and just showcase what came out of your template.
Sure. Thank you.
Each group colleagues will have only 5 minutes, so try to keep things as tight as you can when you present in class in terms of the class presentations out of the template, out of the workbook stuff. It will normally be 5 minutes. If you stretch it, maybe 7, but always keep it tight.
Okay, I'm just waiting for my colleague to share the document before I kick off. Naledi, can you please share? Martha I think is having a problem.
I'm not sure if you can see it.
Yeah, we can see it.
Cool.
Okay, thanks, Naledi. So good morning or good afternoon to everyone in class, and so Dr. Karen. So Syndicate 6, so just a brief overview of Maxhosa, and taking into cognizance that we only got 5 minutes. So Maxhosa is basically a startup organization focusing mainly on Xhosa knitwear, beadwear, and garments. Created by Ulatuma Ngogolo, and this is inspired by a very deep Xhosa culture, which is very sacrosanct. Waluko. I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing it properly. So Waluko, it's basically the initiation in the Xhosa people, and what inspired the creation of the organization is to really celebrate that culture and make sure that the boys that are coming of age, are differentiated and distinct in the community. And based on the popularity and the demand that the organization received, the organization then decided to expand its range, just not focusing just on Xhosa knitwear. And so then they changed from Maxhosa to Maxhosa Africa. So basically where then the focus is really on the African heritage, African culture, African knitwear and garments, and really trying to create a luxurious brand, garment brands using African material. Okay, so that's in a nutshell the overview of the organization. In terms of the strategic vision of the organization, it's really to create a modern Xhosa-inspired knitwear collection that appeals to the current youth and coheres with international trends to create an African luxury brand that speaks to a global language. And at the moment, he's got outlets in New York, Paris, Switzerland. So, and a huge online presence as well. So I'll hand over to Karabo to take us through the next sessions.
Thank you. So when it came to client segments, we decided to group different segments. For example, we have a demographic, lifestyle, and behavioral segment. And what essentially Maxhosa represents is when it comes to gender-related segments, there's no discrimination. They cater for all types of sexes. And when it comes to ages as well, they're not too discriminative, but we looked at an LSM between 18 and above. And when it comes to income-related segments, they focused mainly on targeting middle to high-end, households. And other items that we found is that their focus was on niche products that, target people that can afford them. and they also wanted their products to be environmentally friendly, and also create a unique shopping experience as like the online shopping presence that they have. So the geographies that they cover, they have, as Dikonelo mentioned, local stores and boutique stores overseas, but their online presence gives them a global reach. Their typical timeline in terms of strategic plans, we found that they didn't have a clear strategic plan, and that came across as an emergent strategy versus a planned strategy. But their unique value that makes them stand out and gives them a competitive advantage is that they celebrate that Xhosa culture as opposed to a lot of their competitors, and they target that luxury African brand. Yeah. Okay.
Thanks, Khomechi.
Yeah. Okay. And also what we found very key is that Xhosa, they actually sourcing most of their materials locally from South Africa, and that goes through they use the mohair, and they even go to a very broad extent whereby they're using even the rugs from Lesotho, Cape Town, and Durban. And actually, nothing from the Xhosa is actually manufactured outside of our Southern Africa. So the garments mostly are taken locally. Raw materials such as the mohair is originally coming from the hometown of Port Elizabeth, which is actually the hometown of the founder. But when it comes to our external environmental factors, we actually highlighted or picked the three. And here we looked into the technology, and we find an obstacles that Xhosa need to actually eradicate, being able to offer the production on a digital platform. And in those, actually, we picked up a couple of them. Just go a little bit up. Okay. And in terms of yes, thanks, Nali. And in terms of those, we picked up that the digital space and the advantage of manufacturing, the rapid production and the quality design. So those are the things that we want them to actually look into those ones, because the technology space has been used extensively for brand exposure, and actually Xhosa can still need to exploit this environmental for retailing as well. And when we look into the social and the culture as well, we actually looked into it, and we thought this actually they impact the organization. And we said movement restrict under the pandemic regulations, and this has actually impacted the fashion industry. So actually this become more of a threat, which actually the Xhosa looks like they haven't actually looked into that one. But we are saying this one is the thing that we could highlight onto them to say, look, these are the real things, we need to look at them. And in terms of the economic climate as well, we also looked at it as one of the external factors that we say the COVID-19 obviously has affected the economy, and this is something that we picked up from their organization, that this was not actually catered for. So we just wanted to highlight it to them. So in a nutshell, I'm just going to quickly go down because of the time limit. And in most cases, this is...
No. Sorry, okay. The next one is, guys, wow, that's an exercise for today. And you guys have already done it.
Oh, okay. So
right. No, it's just that, like I said, I'm skipping a lot of things because of the time frame. So we just want to be concise on it. But that's basically what I got. Yes.
No, all I was saying was the vision exercise is for today, is for later. But you guys have proactively done it.
Okay. So, Khomechi, I'd like to add under the economic climate as well. Yes, something very critical that we discussed was that with the pandemic having driven a lot of people out of their jobs, so Xhosa will definitely then have to maybe create a second target market or a second brand that will cater for LSM 3 to 8, because at the moment they're just focusing on the high end of the market, and with the current economic situation, obviously that's going to impact them hugely, given the fact that businesses are battling. So in order to to sustain the business going forward, they really have to try to get into the midsection of the market as well.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Okay, great colleagues. Guys, let's give this group a warm round of applause. I'll tell you why. Yes, excellent work, guys. I must say, out of the many classes I do from PTBA to MBA, because we do the same exercise, this is the most comprehensive and to the point in terms of what I was looking for. So top quality stuff from the group. This is group number
6.
Number 6, group 6. You've made a mark. Thank you very much. Top stuff. So colleagues, I'm sure other groups have also done equally well. But what we're going to be doing is for each exercise, we will only do one presentation. So you're going to have to try and find a way of following, because it's going to be different sectors, different organizations that are going to be unpacked. But that's part of why it is an exciting module, and the approaches that we use are exciting, and people have said so it works, and so the approach works. So thank you very much, group. Guys, just one thing I want to raise, which I was going to raise as part of the conversations in the next chapter. I'm sure Dr. Karen will also raise it next week, is the fact that when we do analysis, the focus is on identifying issues and then discuss their implications. So please keep this in mind. So, for example, let's say you look at the economy. You look at the economy and say, the fact is our economy, you obviously craft it nicely. Fact is our economy is on its knees, it's not growing, and it seems like maybe you're bringing a political issue, very controversial point from my side. It seems like our politicians don't really have ideas in terms of what needs to be done to turn the economy around. Can you see? That is a story, that is me identifying an issue. I will then say, as implication, the implication of this is that as a sector, because remember, for us to grow as a sector, our targeted customers must have enough on their pocket. An economy that's not growing will mean the disposable income is fairly limited for almost all the segments. Can you see? And it means our sector won't grow as fast as we want it to grow from a revenue point of view, because customers don't have money to pay for our products. I mean, if you think about Maxxosa is selling a luxury product. So I'm sure it's going to be the last thing on the mind of the consumer in terms of purchasing their items. Very few consumers will afford their products at this point in terms of where the economy is. That is the implication part. Can you see? So what I'm trying to say is, don't get into what needs to be done. So the beautiful element that we had about from our last colleague, whereby he said they can look at the more middle income segment and so on. That is a recommendation. That is a suggested strategy. That is an option, a strategic option for Maxxosa to consider. So that falls into another level in the strategy journey later on when we do strategic options. For now, all we asked for in that particular question on the template was for you to identify the factors, but not to get, maybe we should have said it, but we didn't want you to really get into the solution. So if you look at your individual assignment, there is a question on assignment 2 where we ask you to come up with options. So I'm trying to say, from an academic point of view, we have to be disciplined. I will even penalize you or negative marking if on assignment 1, you are already positioning or unpacking what the strategic options should be, or you are already recommending solutions, I would penalize you, because assignment 1 is asking for us to just do the analysis, identify issues, and speak about what their implications will be. So thank you very much to that CADA for giving us that opportunity to highlight this matter. Is it a matter or a matter? It depends on which primary school you went to. It depends on which primary school you went to.
No one's the master of pronunciation.
It's a matter. That sounds more private, right? And then a lot of the guys who are in politics, it's a matter. It's a matter. I'll associate that more with the public school space, right? Okay. So thanks to that, Kada, for raising that issue. It gave me an opportunity to remind our audience of that. Colleagues, I want to ask if there's any questions. Is there any questions on what I said? Is there any questions or comments on the work of the group for 2 minutes? Anyone? Yes, not Tando. Anyone? Questions, comments, happiness? Okay, great. Seems like people are happy. I'm also happy with where things are. Okay, colleagues, one of the conversations I want to position with you, and I think it's positioned very nicely on chapter 1 of our textbook, is the fact that strategy happens everywhere. Strategy happens everywhere in the organization. It doesn't matter if it's an organization which is global, it's an organization which is only local in 1 or 2 countries, or whatever the situation might be. Strategy happens everywhere. What do we mean by that? We mean the concept of hierarchy. There is some sort of hierarchy in strategy. Strategy happens everywhere, but these levels of the organization have different and sometimes very specific roles and contributions into the story of strategy, the process of developing strategy, the process of implementing the strategy. Every level will have its own role or contribution into the process. But I want us to be very clear in terms of who is who in the zoo, in terms of the work of strategy. So chapter 1 speaks about it a bit, but also the chapter called practice. I think it's chapter 16, if I remember my chapter as well. Chapter 16 also chat a bit about the practice of strategy, and part of that conversation is who in the zoo, who does what. So organizations are all types of organizations, by the way, whether it's a private commercial business, or it's a public sector organization, it's an NGO, a church, or whatever. These levels will be there. That's the beauty about it. So let's talk about the first level. The first level is what we normally refer to as the corporate level, the corporation. So in other words, you might refer to it as the head office. That's where the big guns of the organization are located. For example, if you look at Standard Bank, where I used to work, the head office for the bank is actually here in Johannesburg CBD, in the Cell B Marshalltown space. And the top executives, group executives, have got offices in that particular location. But interestingly, we also have another second head office in Rosebank, and the business units are mainly located in Rosebank. But that's the story for another day. In any organization, the top level is normally referred to as the corporate, and at that level, they are mainly busy with, or they are mainly responsible for, what we refer to as corporate strategy. Interestingly, in the corporate strategy space, in terms of what these guys are obsessing with, are two questions or topics or questions, if you want, that these guys obsess with almost on a daily basis. When I say guys, who do I refer to? I refer to the group ExCo. I refer to the group ExCo and their supporting teams, right, at the corporate office. So the issue of group in terms of people's titles is becoming very important. A lot of organizations are making it clear in terms of who's who in the zoo. So you will find that the top CEO of the organization is referred to as the group CEO, supported by group CFO, supported by group COO, group CMO, a chief marketing officer, a group HR officer or group people officer, and so on. So these 15 or so people, all of them have got group next to their titles. And then when you get to the next level, business level, which I'm going to unpack later, there is no G. Interestingly, the people who are responsible for those business units, it's a new thing, guys, new thing in the last 2-3 years. Those people are also referred to as chief executive. Chief executive for personal and business banking, chief executive for wealth management, chief executive for insurance, chief executive for corporate banking and all of that. So that's for example, the Standard Bank or any other bank's situation. If you go to Bidvest, the Bidvest group, in the Bidvest group, the business units are actually the brands. One brand, for example, is the McCarthy brand, which is in the vehicle space. You've got Bidvest Proteacoin, who are in the protection space, security. You've got Bidvest Cleaning, and so on and so on. So each and every one of those brands in the Bidvest family has got a CEO. But in the holding company, at the group level, you have a group CEO of the Bidvest group. But in each brand, you have a CEO. Are you guys happy with that? So if you chat with any of the CEOs in the business unit or the next level there, when you ask them, what is the next big thing on your career? They will tell you that I want to add a G. They won't say much, just want to add a G on my title. So in other words, I'm a CEO of a brand, I'm a CEO of a business unit. The next for me is to be group CEO. That's my next in terms of my career. In some organizations, they are still called, in the business unit level, they are still called head of, but in most organizations, the new thing now to give them that seniority is to refer to them as CEO, CEO of, and so on. I hope you guys are happy with that. So that's the who is who in the zoo. So let's go back to the first level there on top, which is corporate level. So what I was saying earlier is that at this level, there are two questions these guys obsess with on a daily basis. The first question is, what businesses should we be in? What businesses should we be in? So in other words, what industries, what sectors, what countries should we be entering and be present as an organization? For example, if you look at the likes of Google, the international business, very successful. Google, for the longest of time, they've been focusing on this space, which is the internet search space and all of that. But over time, those top executives ask the question to say, is this sustainable? There's a lot of competition in the space. Things are changing. Should we not be in other businesses as well? Should we not be in other sectors and other industries? And the answer became yes. And they then went into spaces, you guys will know better than me, but they went into spaces like building technologies for future cars. I know they've been collaborating with some of the leading car manufacturing companies to build technology. I know they are involved one way or the other in the cell phone or mobile space and a few other spaces, right? So they are sort of hedging their future. They are sort of protecting their future by also investing in other industries, in other sectors and all of that. What businesses should we be in? That's the first question group executives and their teams at corporate level obsessed with. The second question, which is a supporting question going with the first, is once we are in those businesses, how should those businesses be managed? This is a big one, colleagues. Once we have decided that, okay, we're going in and we are in, how should these businesses be managed? You might want to throw a stone back, but I'll argue that the first question, it's not a question they're going to ask on a daily basis. Maybe once a quarter, maybe every second month when they meet as ExCo. You can ask that question every day. But the question that they ask almost in every ExCo conversation is how should these businesses be managed? Which businesses are they referring to? They are referring to the businesses in the next level. For Bidvest, it's all those brands. By the way, guys, Bidvest has got about 80 brands, plus minus. Standard Bank has got about 7 key business units. I know with the other bigger organizations, it's a similar number in terms of super business units. The question is, how should those business units, how should those businesses be managed? Part of that conversation goes into issues like resources. How should we deploy resources? How should we manage and support the resources? In fact, in your textbook, there's a very powerful concept called parenting. Parenting. So in other words, in business, we also do parenting, right? To say what parenting approach should we use for each of the businesses? Let me tell you guys, for those of you who are lucky to have children, if you have, let's say you have 3 of them, right? 3 kids, all of them similar age. Am I right to say these kids will not be in the same level of maturity? Are you guys happy with that? They won't be in the same level of maturity. So you cannot manage the 3 kids the same way. So each and every kid has a story. Each and every kid gives you context. Remember, in strategy, we are led by context. The approaches we take are led by context. We take context-led approaches. So same thing on how we manage each of the businesses. One kid, for example, or one business unit, one kid is fairly new. Okay, not new, because that's a bad example for the kids, but they are all same age, right? But if it was a business, fairly new business, you only entered it in the last 6 months, you've put in quite a bit of money in it, you might want to micromanage that particular business. So even the CEO that you've put in there, you as the person who comes from group or from corporate level, you become upfront with them and say to them, the approach I'm going to be taking with you is an approach that is fairly micro in terms of management. Why? Because you are new and I've put in a lot of money. It's not that I don't trust you. So I'm trying to say we tend to maybe apply more micromanagement type approaches to new businesses, especially where we have invested a lot of money and other resources. Even a business that is not performing as well as it should, that business invites micromanagement from us at the top, right? I'll come to the head now. Tikonela, I'll come to you now. That business which is not performing well is inviting an approach that is fairly micro in nature. However, a business unit that is well established, is performing well, no issues as such, meeting targets. Maybe, just maybe, we might not want to use micromanagement there. Just let that business be. Give them space to breathe. I can tell you now, the CEO in that space and their teams, they will appreciate the fact that corporate is not always in our case. Why? Because we're doing well on our own. Right? There's this chap, Warren Buffett. Guys, by the way, is his name Warren Buffett or Warren Buffet?
Buffett.
All right, man. Guys. Don't underestimate the issue of primary schools. Is this man Warren Buffet or Warren Buffett?
Buffett.
Or something else?
It's Buffett.
If you French, you call him buffet.
Well, even buffet in some primary schools. So he's very unique. He's a very smart investor. He's got investments everywhere. He's got 35%, or 30%, 40%, 51% in large corporates globally. He made an announcement about 24 years ago. He said, I'm done. He said, for all my investments, I'm taking an approach whereby I'm done with micromanagement. You won't see me. If you are doing things right, you won't see me. You'll only see me at least once a year. And he stayed true to that. He only meets, because he's even tired of attending board meetings. He only meets top executives from investments where he has put in a lot of money. He only meets them like once or twice a year. And he says those meetings don't even last an hour because a lot of those organizations are doing fairly well. So I'm trying to say the parenting approach that corporate takes for business units always depends on context, especially issues like performance, the year of the business, and all of that, right? So going back to the analogy of the kids, to say you always look at what level of maturity are these kids in, and once you understand that, you then decide what parenting approach you're going to use, and even the issue of resource allocation to the kids. If you are giving the kids, if you have budget of 1,000 rands per month as pocket money for each of the kids, are you always going to give them 1,000 rands each? Or will you also look at context? For example, if one of the kids is into Nyaupe, is smoking everything out there that is smokable, are you going to give that kid 1,000 rands a month as well? Because chances are they're going to spend that on Nyaupe or whatever drugs they're taking. Maybe that kid must be given $100 instead of 1,000. And you give the others who are well behaved 1,000 rand each. Sounds silly, but those things have to come into mind when we allocate resources as part of answering the question, how should these businesses be managed? Happy to pause there. Tikonelo, I know you had something to share.
Yeah, so I wanted to ask on how the corporate parent should manage the individual businesses, and I wanted just to add that I think the ownership model also directs them in terms of how they can manage the businesses. If it's a wholly owned subsidiary, then it's direct management. But if it's a minority shareholding, then it becomes the approach. It's not as direct as wholly owned subsidiaries.
Thanks for that. Thanks for that, brother. So there's a lot of truth into what you've shared, a lot of lesson for us to pay attention to. The issue of ownership is indeed a dynamic that will inform the management style. This becomes a lot relevant as well in the owner managed businesses, whereby the entrepreneur also manages. Like myself in the Purple Growth business, I'm the owner, but also I run the business on a daily basis together with the team. So definitely the ownership structure will inform the parenting style. What I want to raise is that let's not confuse what our colleague is saying to the role of the board. Are you guys happy? The board of the organization. The board is basically a small group of people, depending on the size of organization. It can be anything from 2 people. I think governance. I think King 4 says try and have 3 and more. Okay, so anything between 3 and 25 people in most organizations, we can easily form a board. Big organizations, you will likely see 25. With a number of committees in that board as well. These are people from external. These guys are not internal in the organization. Yeah, we'll invite the CEO and the CFO to also sit in the board, but the majority of the people are from external. So the board represents the investors, and the board does not run the organization. The board does not, has limitations in terms of some of the decisions. So you find that the board empowers Exco or Group Exco in terms of decisions that must be taken about the company, but there's a rule that says Group Exco must bounce off with the board and get guidance on some of the most critical long-term and strategic decisions, especially where there is risk. So all I'm trying to say is let's just be careful and remember the fact that in most, at least the commercial businesses, the board has a fairly limited role in terms of the running of the company. The company is mainly run by the Exco, Group Exco, and Exco is largely accountable for a lot of the decisions that are taken, including the strategy itself. But the board gives oversight. That's the word I was looking for. The board gives oversight, but Exco does the day-to-day running and the day-to-day decisioning in the organization. I hope that helps. Okay, so we're still unpacking the role of corporate, which is basically Group Exco and their supporting teams. And I think you are happy where you are. I'm happy to move to the next. I'll take 1 or 2 questions. Pilar is there. But I think all I want to say is at the corporate level, just keep in mind, if you want to remember one thing, remember the fact that there are 2 strategic issues that these guys obsess with, or strategic questions if you want. The first question is, which businesses should we be in? When we say businesses, we are referring to industries, sectors, countries, regions, and all of that. Sometimes even product spaces, even though this one is more a decision of business unit, but even group gets involved in some of the big product decisions. So that's the question of what businesses should we be in? And then the support question is, once we are in, how should we then manage those businesses? If you remember that for me, you understand corporate level. Okay, great. Before I move on to the next one, let me bring in 1 or 2 comments. Pilar, I will start with you.
So thanks. Just I think 2 quick ones.
Yeah.
When you're talking about how do we parent or manage these businesses, would that also entail operationalizing the strategy? Because that is where we actually get the hands dirty in terms of the strategy coming up from group level. When we now say how do we manage it, are we also now talking about how do we operationalize the strategy, make it practical and execute it? I think then
okay.
Okay.
Yeah, before you go to the next question, so your question can be attacked from many angles. So in strategy, we also speak about the so-called plans. But in planning, there are many levels of plans. There are strategic plans, there are operational plans, and there are tactical plans. So in the main, the group level is responsible for the strategic side of planning. Those elements, strategic planning elements, include things like the vision, the mission, elements like the objectives and the goals of the organization, and how those goals should be delivered at a high level. That belongs to the corporate level. And then the business unit and the other level I'm going to speak about, they are mainly responsible for coming up with the more practical and operational plans and the implementation, and they're also responsible for the implementation of those. That is business unit level and the support level. But don't worry, that question is going to become clear for you as I unpack this issue.
Excellent. Thanks, Mzo.
Pilar, you might have another comment or question. I think you wanted to follow up.
It was just to add, or maybe to check if it's correct to say the function of over and above the oversight function of the board being to actually be the oversight function. Would it also be correct to say they also represent the shareholders?
Yes, remember what we said? We said the board, you're right, the board represents the investors or the shareholders if you want. Oh, guys, by the way, the Bishop Primary School comes in again. Is it investors? Is it shareholders? Same thing, guys. Same thing, guys. So, yes, the board represents the shareholders or the investors. Guys, in some organizations, there are thousands and thousands of shareholders. This person has one share, the other has two, especially listed organizations. Those thousands and thousands of people can't attend meetings, right? Yeah. In America, by the way, they have a culture of having a meeting for all investors once or twice a year, and they normally hire like a stadium for all investors to come and attend a special AGM. So it's an American culture. Okay, and then these investors, doesn't matter the number, they then appoint or select and elect amongst themselves a board, a small group of people who are going to represent their interests. So those big shareholders who own 50%, 55, 80, 25, they will force themselves into the board. It doesn't matter if there are millions of shareholders. The fact that I own 50, I must be represented in the board. The company policy might even say, or constitution might even say 8 seats belong to the organization that has 50% plus a share. It's those kind of things and so on. But yeah, in summary, without creating confusion, the board is a small group of people who represent the shareholders of the company. But remember, 2 top executives are normally invited to be part of the board, and those executives might not have shares in the company. For example, the CEO and the CFO and the group auditing executive, they will likely have no shares in most cases, but they are part of the board in a way. Yeah. Okay, great. But in fact, they're not really part of it, but they are invited. They attend almost every meeting, but there might be meetings where they are discussed, their issues are discussed, and they'll be asked to, politely so, not to attend the meeting today. To say, the meeting, I know you know about it, it's in your diary, but don't attend today. CEO, don't come today to the board meeting. It means there's a big issue about the CEO, hence they're being asked not to attend on that day. I saw another hand that supported Pilar. There were 2 hands earlier. Okay, I think one has disappeared. Okay, that's fine. Colleagues, any other comments or questions before I move to the next level? Okay, great. Let's take a break. It's now 13:05. Let's come back at, let's make it a nice tight break, 10 minutes. I'll give you a longer break later. Let's come back at 1:15. And I'll start unpacking the next level.
Thank you.
10 minutes, guys. Keep it tight. Okay, great. Welcome back, guys. Welcome back. Don't forget to put your mic on mute and only unmute when you addressing us. I also saw a note earlier. It was from Eric. Eric says he only joined today and is asking how do I get added to a syndicate group. Guys, Eric Malebana is only joining us today. Can we give Eric a warm round of applause and Amaflate? Hola, Eric.
Thank you.
Yes. Eric, can we put you on the spotlight? Are you able to put your mic, your video up and say hi to the class? We're putting you on the spotlight, Eric. If you can. That's the rule of the class. If you can, share video when you speak. Hey, guys, especially those syndicate presenters. So if you can, when you're presenting the group work, put up your video. We'll welcome that. But if you can't, we'll understand. So Eric, if you can, you might want to put up the video and just say hi. If not, we'll understand as well. So Motalepula is kind, and she said she's going to assist Eric in terms of connecting her with Poncho to make sure that Eric has got a syndicate group. So great. Yeah, Poncho will definitely be happy to assist to make sure that this comrade gets a branch that he can be part of. Great. Colleagues, happy to go back to the content. And I hope you enjoyed your short break. I will likely give you a longer break just after 2 or somewhere after 2, somewhere there. I'm just preparing my slide. Great. Okay, guys, I think you are happy, you are comfortable in terms of corporate level strategy. Let's now talk about the next level. So we said in a business that is well diversified, diversified means they are sort of everywhere or are fairly wide in scope. The likes of Bidvest Group, they are in almost every industry. The big banks, I think they are also starting to diversify a bit, get into the telecoms industry, get into other countries, and so on. So they are also growing their scope and portfolio. But we did say someone like Capitec is still fairly limited in scope, in that Capitec is only serving few segments in one country, so their scope is still fairly limited. So we spoke about scope last week when we're doing the definitions of strategy. So it doesn't matter if the organization is well diversified or not. Doesn't matter if it's a large or small business. It doesn't matter if it's a public sector company, an NGO like a church or NPO. You will also have these so-called business units. In other organizations, they refer to them as divisions. So there tends to be a lot of confusion between a unit and the division. I will definitely not call them departments. Departments are the next level, which we are going to unpack shortly. So I'll rather maybe refer to them as business units or divisions. Someone like Standard Bank will have business units which are corporate and investment banking, personal and business banking, wealth management, and also Liberty. Liberty, the insurance company, is one of our business units at Standard Bank. So there's an example of business units. Guys, the biggest difference between the top level and this level is the fact that the business unit level tends to be very external in terms of its focus. Very external. while corporate level is more internal, especially when you look at that question of how should these businesses be managed. That is all internal maneuvers in terms of our day-to-day management of our businesses. Business level is very external. It's very competitive in nature. So if you go back to the definitions of strategy on page 5 of the textbook, Peter Drucker and Michael Porter were defining strategy with this level in mind. So at the business unit level, a lot of the thinking, a lot of the conversations, a lot of the workshopping, a lot of the decisions that are taken by the CEO or the head of the unit, they are ExCo. Oh, guys, interestingly, they will also have their own ExCo and other support teams. Their obsession is about how do we win the day-to-day. So very operational in terms of the thinking, but they will also have strategic elements, which is those long-term thinking, long-term decisions, but there's a lot of day-to-day operational decisions and implementation of that at the business level. By nature, these strategies are competitive. We are obsessed with questions like, what can we do for us to be different? What can we do for this business, for this product, for this service to be more differentiated versus competitors? In the textbook, chapter 7 is focusing on exactly these questions in terms of approaches to differentiating yourself against competition. Those approaches could be pricing related, where you are more differentiated in the pricing game. You come in as more competitive in your pricing, in how you manage your costs, and you pass on the benefits of your efficient cost management into the client. You might take an approach that says we are about value. We give the customer value. We give them a premium service or a premium product, and the customer is always happy to pay for that. That's also a way of differentiating yourself. So all I'm saying, without giving away the game of chapter 7, which one of my groups is presenting, just keep in mind, at the business unit level, one of the obsessions in terms of things or questions that are addressed daily is how do we differentiate ourselves? How do we make ourselves more attractive than competitors? The issue of building competitive advantages is dealt with at the corporate level. What advantages do we want to build? How do we protect these advantages against competition? All of those issues are unpacked at the business unit level. Strategies and execution happens at that level as well. That is the business unit level. Colleagues, in terms of numbers of staff, especially for commercial businesses, my argument is most of your teams should actually sit at business unit level, not corporate level. I've seen many organizations making the mistake of being too thick at corporate level, right? The game is won or lost at the business unit level. Business units are the ones who are on the ground selling our products and services and serving our clients. So rather have most of your resources there, rather have some of your best resources there. In fact, when you look at people who are CEOs of business unit level, you have some of the smartest people, most intelligent, most talented people at business unit level. Sometimes you know that this person, Joe Nomsa, should be promoted to manage the whole group at group level, but you say, no, because the game is won here, I would rather keep this person here at business unit level. To be controversial, I know 1 or 2 organizations where the CEOs at business unit level sometimes earn a bigger salary than the group CEO. Why? Because this person brings true value. They bring in the money, they bring in the right customers, and they do what they can to keep these customers happy and so on. So that's the actual business. Business is run at the business unit level. You might just want to have your best people there rather. Okay, let me bring you guys in. What are your thoughts? What are your thoughts on this issue of what business unit level is about? What are your thoughts? What have you seen in your own organization in terms of how this plays out, the dynamics between business unit level and corporate level, in terms of information sharing, in terms of relations, in terms of who makes what decision, in terms of power sharing in your organization? Where is the power? Have you seen the power sitting in the business unit level, or have you seen the power sitting at the corporate level? Interesting questions, eh? I've got a hand. Let me see who's there. Thinas, come in.
Hi, everyone. Thank you.
Hi, sir.
Thanks for the interesting lesson on hierarchy of strategy. I think comparing the corporate level to the business unit level, where you've got in the business units, just very interestingly looking at the sector and then the opcos or divisions within the sector. So the one example that you gave about Bidvest, similar in the organization that I work with, there's a corporate or a group company with group CEO and group exco, and then you've got the business unit levels, which have each their own CEOs and their own excos. A lot of times those business units will also have their own board.
Yeah.
As they would be a separate registered entity, which is the situation in our organization.
Yes, let me chip in there quickly before, so that everyone is on the same page, follow the story. So you might find that the business units are listed separately, and the shareholders and the owners are not the same. The big business maybe owns 50% plus one share, but the minority shareholders are not the same. So hence the board is different. For example, the Standard Bank, the Nigeria business, we only own about 50% plus one share, and then they've got their own other shareholders who are very powerful and vocal. So hence they have their own board. It's a very complex structure. We can have a chat about it another day, but let's allow our colleagues to follow to flow nicely with the story. Come in, Thinas there.
Yeah, thank you. Also checking on the, if each entity, it's separate registered entities sometimes in the business units, and then even taking one individual business unit within that business, you've got different. You almost have a functional business structure.
Yeah.
Also, you've got different business units. Some of your business units competing in slightly different markets or positions in terms of strategy, but working together to give a 360 offering.
Yes.
So yeah, it gets quite complex. I think it's been very interesting listening to the strategy and the vision, because each business unit can have their own vision as well, depending on the market they play in.
Yes.
Thank you.
Great. Thank you so much for that practical story there, Dennis. And one of the things I want to raise, which you remind me of, is the fact that even if these business units are so different in terms of the sectors they're in, the type of products or services they offer, the nature of business itself is so different between the business units, there must be some sort of golden thread that connects everyone. In most organizations, that, like Bidvest Group, that tends to be the vision and also the top 3, top 5 objectives. So all business units, even if they are all different, are all working towards one vision, are all working towards helping the group achieve 2, 3 objectives that have been set by group ExCo. Very important. So they might be different, but there must be something that brings them together. There must be something that allows them to speak the same language. At Bidvest, when the CEO of McCarthy, the car company, meets the CEO of Protea Coin, which is the security company, there must be a language that they can both speak. When they meet in a shopping center, they must be able to say, how are you contributing to the group's objective of 20% increase on revenue by next year? Can you see? They are both bound by one objective of increasing the group's revenue by 20%. Then the guy from security will say, I am too small. I'm too small. My contribution is only going to be 0.5%, and I'm pushing for that. Then the McCarthy guy will say, we are slightly bigger than you. We are looking at about contributing about 0.5%, something like that. So there must be those elements of strategy that keep these guys together. Those will likely be the vision and the top level objectives. Okay, great, guys. I want to bring in other colleagues quickly. Let me start with Diconello. I'll bring only two. I'll bring Diconello and someone else. I'll choose who else. Just two colleagues quickly. The other colleagues, I'll invite them later on other matters. Diconello is gone.
Sorry, I was
no
on
mute. No. Oh, okay. So come in then.
Yeah, sorry. Now, I wanted to say that also what is critical at the business unit level, it's synergy between the various business units. And I think you spoke about it, which is it's a common thread, because obviously for them to be more competitive, they need to be able to share some of the resources across the businesses, and that makes them more competitive. And another comment, it was related to at the corporate strategy level. I wanted to make a comment about the fit test, that at the corporate, if you look at a diversified group like Bidvest, they always look at the fit test. Does this business fit into the overall, group or holding company strategy? So yeah, that is my contribution.
Beautiful, my brother. So the fit test is more applicable when we make the decision at corporate level. You remember the first question on corporate level is, what businesses should we be in? So the issue of fit test becomes important there when we decide who to buy, who to acquire, what space to enter. Does this business fit into our ways of doing things? If not, should we still buy it and all of that? So the fit test that he mentions mainly becomes relevant at that level of conversation. He also mentioned the word synergy. Hey, one of the words we normally throw around to throw our weight and show that we are on an MBA, PDBA journey, and we're now doing strategy, showcasing back at the office as part of change evidence. The word synergy is normally thrown around. So he says to us, there must be synergies. If they are not there, we must look for those synergies and we must find them. Let me break news, colleagues. More than 70% of organizations, especially diversified organizations, are struggling to exploit synergies between their businesses. Why? Because there is no communication between the businesses. There is hardly any collaborative efforts. These guys are really not connected. They don't feel like they work for the same group, and so on and so on. And there's a lot of politics, competitive. They compete sometimes amongst each other. And if you have those dynamics, you are likely not able to exploit synergies. So part of being at the corporate level is being what we call a synergy manager. The books unpacks that very nicely for us on chapter 8. And also chapter 11, the issue of being a good synergy manager. So in other words, when you sit at the corporate level, if you are a top strategist, you're a top thinker, you'll be able to look for the synergies, identify them between the business units, and then bring the business units together into a room and say to them, guys, I want you to share this, I want you to share that, and so on and so on and so on, right? So this is quite critical. I'm going to share the Sakumzi case later on, and I might tap into some of these conversations. But Sakumzi as a restaurant is going to be a case that I'm going to introduce later in the journey, and I might want to bring this conversation when I introduce Sakumzi later in the journey. Okay, great. I've got about 5 or 6 hands. I'm going to ignore those hands for now. So I might visit them later because of time. So pause on my hands. I will come back to you. I will remember you later on. There's quite a few things I want to show you guys today. So let's go back, guys, to the content and see what else. And I might entice those hands to come back on what else. Okay, so in terms of what else, I hope everyone can see the slide. The last level is called functional strategy. Functional strategy is more support, guys. It's more support in terms of what that is about. So the typical functional units, the typical support units are marketing, finance, HR. Manufacturing tends to be fully embedded in the business units, but in some organizations, like in the textbook and some other textbooks, for some reason, manufacturing is being identified as also a functional or support area, but let's leave that conversation for another day. But the most common, the likes of marketing, HR, finance, are seen as support areas. Let me tell you now, don't allow the word support or functional to make you to undermine these areas. These units or departments are very important in their own right. In fact, their importance is highlighted by the fact that in some organizations, they are fully integrated into the business unit. They don't stand on their own. The marketing director is part of the ExCo in that business unit and is respected equally versus maybe the product owner, one of the executives. So I'm going to say, don't underestimate people who come from these departments or support areas. They add so much value to the business unit. But their main function is exactly that, to support the units, to also support the corporate level. So some of the elements that are done at corporate level will need, for example, marketing. Corporate level sometimes owns the brand. The brand of the organization, like Bidvest, will be owned by a unit under corporate, and marketing is part of that, can be part of that unit easily in terms of managing the brand and the reputation of the organization. So this one is very straightforward. These are support units. They are mainly there to support the business unit, and to a lesser extent, they also support the corporate level. Embed them as much as you can so that they don't get left behind. Do what you can to make them feel like they are part of the business unit team. Because once they feel like they are separate from the business unit, you're going to struggle in terms of collaborative ways of doing things between support and business unit. I hope you guys are comfortable with that. A lot of you guys might be from these units, from these departments. I've met a lot of people from marketing in my PDPAs. I've met a lot of people from finance. So you might want to share with us what has been your experience in terms of your relations with business unit level. What has been your experience? How do you work with them in terms of executing on the strategy from business unit level? Oh, by the way, the support areas also have their own strategies that they come up with. Marketing has a marketing strategy. Finance has a financing plan, which might involve how will we get funding for the organization, how will we manage budgets, and so on and so on. How will we guide teams on their management of budgets and all of that. So each support area will likely have a strategy for that area and a plan on how they're going to execute on their work for the benefit of the business unit and the corporate level as well. So I hope I've said enough. Let me check if someone wants to come in and contribute. Let me start with Sinqobile. Sinqobile, is there something you want to share are you able to maybe talk about relations or your observations at support level and how support works with the other levels, especially business level or maybe also corporate? Are you able to share something there? Nobile, you might be on mute.
Hi,
oh, there you go. Yeah.
I think what I wanted to say before, you had a question asking where the power is between business unit and corporate level. That is what I wanted to talk about. And when we started on corporate level, you spoke about parenting. And you know, as a parent, you'll have a deputy parent. Deputy parent obviously tends to have more power than the corporate level. And then obviously the corporate level will tend to look after the smaller children. And then in connection with
who is the deputy parent in the family setup?
It's the eldest one.
Ah, yes, lovely.
Normally they'll be the most responsible one who you don't have to babysit. That would be under normal circumstances. So even in our organizations, you will tend to find that the bigger part of the bigger business unit, you will tend not to look after that business unit. It should be taking off on its own, and you will tend to look after the smaller business units. And then in terms of how our support functions fit into the business units, the support functions are actually, if you want to look at the business unit, they actually run the business unit, if I could call it that. Because if the support units stand back, there will be no operations which are actually happening on the ground.
Yes. So before you move on, you are raising something very interesting, guys. She's raising something interesting in that the support unit. I won't use a word which is run. We can debate that another. Maybe we can debate it over coffee. The support unit has got some sort of oversight on the business unit, but obviously depending on which support unit we're referring to. For example, the risk management department, compliance department, those two are very powerful. And no one talks about those two units. Those two departments or support areas, risk management, compliance, legal department, they tend to be, even though they are junior in a way, because they support the business unit and they support the corporate, but they have so much power from an oversight point of view. They can easily hold the executives accountable. And the executives will feel that, sure, I'm getting fired now. They won't fire the executive, but they call you to the room and say, you've done 1, 2, 3, 4, and they leave it there. They say, can you do it slightly different? But you know that it's going to end up at the top and you're likely gone, right? So they have that oversight function, some of the support areas. And from that point of view, they have so much power. Right? Thanks for sharing that. And the issue of power obviously depends on context, depends on the type of organization that you are in. Thanks so much, Nobile, for sharing that. I want to bring in 1 or 2 more voices. Let me check if I can bring in Pila. Pila, come in, and then I'll bring in either Mthokozisi or Betty, depending on what my mood will be after Pila. Pila, come in.
Thanks, Mzo. I like the support functions and the way in which we are actually breaking them down. I think it's also quite important for the support functions. Let me just use the marketing one as an example. If you look at a group or a corporate like Standard Bank, where you will have a CMO, then under the CMO, you will have different heads of marketing who supports different business units. When they go into those different business units, for an example, a distribution channel head or something like that, it's important for the business unit that you support to understand the value that you bring or your role into that specific business unit as a support. Because if they do not understand, some of these executives might feel as if you are imposing yourself or you are actually taking over the power in their specific business unit. So it's quite key because they, in their own regard, as much as they are support, but in their own regard, they are executives in their support functionalities. So it's quite key, the understanding of what do I bring as support, as marketing, what is my role when I come to your business unit. And I'm not there to impose myself or to actually take over the show there, but I'm there to enhance the actual strategy of your business unit.
Yes, I love it, Pila. I love it. So at the heart of the story you're sharing is the story of value. To say they must be able to see and feel the value that you bring. Guys, in some organizations, there's so much politics in that they might even close out the guys from support and even not even invite them to certain important meetings and all of that. Maybe because of history, maybe historically, those units have not added value. They are just a cost center who brings in our margins down, and so on and so on and so on and so on, right? So it's important for the support areas to be seen as adding value and indeed adding value. How do I want to conclude this conversation? Is to say, if they add value, they will almost automatically earn, very important, earn a seat on the table. Those ExCom meetings will not start without marketing, without IT, without legal, if you are seen as adding value. So in other words, you have earned the respect of your colleagues from business unit. I can tell you guys, this is a very important conversation. This is very difficult to achieve. It's easy for us to talk about it, but in terms of really earning that seat on the table, it's not the easiest things. It's an ongoing struggle. Sometimes you don't even get respected. The fact that you're in marketing, just marketing. These guys don't know that you have 5 MBAs, you have a PhD, you are the top marketing guru in this country, and you are very senior in the organization, and you earn way more than some of them. They won't even think about that. But then all they're looking at is marketing. Those guys. All they think about is these big ideas that cost money and never bring us anything back. Right? That's what they have in their minds. So it's your job as someone senior in the support area to showcase on a daily basis and never give up, showcase the kind of value that you bring. That way, you will secure your seat in the table. Okay, great, colleagues. Something says, let me go to Betty and then Mthokozisi. Both of them will close it for us. Betty will kill it and then Mthokozisi will bury it.
Thanks, Mzo. My experience, I'm in the finance in the public sector. So the experience there is quite bad because we are always treated like support people. And in the public sector, you have issues of compliance and issues of cost containment. So also as finance people, we make it rather impossible for the business units to achieve their goals. So I think that's what's informed my decision in studying this qualification, because I'm tired of just crunching numbers. I want to now fit into the bigger picture of the strategy of the organization so that we understand where they're coming from and we are not just treated as support staff. Thank you.
Yes, nice. Your guys, very personal experience there as well, hey, from Betty, and it can be quite complex and more difficult to deal with in the public sector, where there's a lot of politics, a lot of hidden agendas. I'm sorry to say that. Yeah, even in the private sector, there's always hidden agendas, but in the public sector, I think it's slightly more pronounced. So yeah, big challenge for you to navigate. Betty, it's going to be an ongoing struggle. And I'm hoping with what you're going to learn from this module and the other modules on the PTPA, you're going to enhance your skills and your tools in terms of fighting those battles, in terms of adding value to those spaces. It's all about adding value. Because sometimes they see you as an enemy. Legal, finance, risk management, those three are mainly seen as enemy. So the battle is, what can I do for these guys to see me as a friend who looks after the interests of the organization and their interests, by the way, while I can also be a business partner, a partner to them. Great. It's now dead. Thokozisi, bury it. Yeah, guys, Umto might be scared to bear. Tokosi, you might be on mute. Tokosi, are you there? I think he's trying to come up, but for some reason, maybe it's the sound settings on your laptop. Okay, I'll go back to you later. Pilar, down your hand. Pilar, your hand is still up. Okay, great, guys. Beautiful, hey? Beautiful. So I hope you get it. I hope you are comfortable in terms of the hierarchy of strategy, in terms of saying strategy happens everywhere in the organization, but everyone, sort of all the 3 levels have got different roles, different contributions to the strategy. And we said, if we can, let's have a golden thread that makes sure that there is something that keeps it together, from corporate to business unit to the last one, which is support, even for the most diversified organizations. There's also the concept of top-down versus bottom-up. So I encourage organizations to take a hybrid approach that allows for the top to set the direction with that high-level vision, objectives, and few other elements they give us, and then allow managers at all levels to give detail to the strategy, to give detail and meat to the plans and all of that, so that everyone has a voice. If most managers and executives have a voice on the strategy, have a contribution on the strategy, it's easy for them to buy into what needs to be done. When there is buy-in, you then get what we call ownership. They will easily take ownership of the work of the organization, drive it forward, and achieve success for the organization if we manage to allow bottom-up or complementing top-down. Organizations that only apply top-down, they struggle, they lose talent, turnaround. People leave the organization because they feel like they don't have contribution and voice to the strategy. So I'm not a big fan of top-down. I'm a big fan of a hybrid approach, top-down, supported by bottom-up. In terms of the processes of developing strategy and contributions to the strategy itself and the implementation of that strategy. I hope you guys are happy and comfortable in terms of where the conversation is right now. Okay, before I move, are there any questions or comments? Questions, comments? Before we introduce the next concept. Hi, Nobile.
Mzo, can I maybe not? Ooh, just as a question, can we then now quickly say that probably the... Okay, I'm hearing myself and it sounds very funny. Okay, can I... sorry. Okay, that's better. Can we say that the support functions and the business units, the problem why you call them enemies is because now the support functions are actually trying to ensure that the law, if I could call it the law, or their strategy is followed. And the business units still want to go ahead with the business, which is why we have a conflict between the two.
Mzo, you're on mute.
Put me on mute. Hey guys, please don't do that. Just tell me to unmute or mute when we need to. Okay, so I'm saying your comment is great. There are elements of it that are thumbs up, but there are elements of your comment that are generalizing. So all we're saying was that some, not all, some of the support functions have an oversight role that allows them to hold business unit executives and teams and corporate level executives and teams, hold them to account on certain issues. For example, compliance. I think compliance is an obvious one. Compliance will always call anyone to order in terms of saying, as an organization, we are not supposed to do 1, 2, 3, 4. So you and your business unit, or you as an individual, what you are doing is against the company's policies, rules, the industry's norms, and whatever. So they hold the mirror to make sure that there's compliance in how we do things, in how things are done in the business and at corporate level. So all we're saying is some people might take that in a bad way and see the likes of compliance, legal, risk management as police or as enemies to what we're trying to do. They are slowing us down. They are slowing us down. You know, that kind of thing. So I'm trying to say that was a quick comment that we mentioned in passing. I won't want you to feel that that is a principle when it comes to how support functions operate and how they relate to business unit and corporate. Definitely not. That was just a passing comment on areas like compliance and legal. Are you happy with that?
Thank you, Mzo.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Dikonelo, there's something you want to share?
Yeah, so I wanted to respond to that that last question of the support functions being seen as orphans or as police. I think the biggest.
Okay, before you continue, I don't want to create confusion. Let's say some, please. Let's say some.
Yes. Okay.
Because in marketing and many other business units, that element does not exist.
Yeah. So go and what I wanted to say that what is very important and critical, it's strategic alignment. So each the functional units are aligning themselves to the business unit strategy. They know what is it that they need to deliver. I mean, if let's say my organization wants to be a talent magnet as part of its strategic objectives, and my HR colleague does not build an environment to build the organizational brand in order to attract the best in the industry, then there's misalignment. And the lady from government who works in finance, I can tell you now, business finance partners who really understand the strategy of the business and they do everything to help achieve the objectives don't feel orphaned at all. So for me, it's about alignment across the functions. Thanks, Mzo.
Thank you so much. It's alignment, but also before that, I think openness, transparency, and also elements of I don't know if I should call it education, whereby you must make, let's say you're from compliance, you're from legal, you're from risk management, you must have internal campaigns where you promote what you're about as a department, what you do, and how it adds value and protect the business and even those business units that might be worried about your role. Talk to them about how you add value and how you protect them, and talk to them about rules of engagement. Let's say you are the new head of compliance. I would say before you even execute on your work, call a meeting with all the areas and talk to them about rules of engagement. Talk to them about how you're going to be approaching compliance issues when they arise, so that they don't get surprised. When you come in with a slightly firm and stronger voice, they know that something has gone wrong and they know that you are on their side. Even if exposing them could mean someone gets fired, that's not your game. That's not what you're looking for. You are doing your job to protect them as a business unit and to protect the interests of the organization. So maybe set those things up, raise those things and have them on the table from day one so that people know what you are about. Thank you so much, guys, for engaging us on this topic. I did say on day one, out of the 170, 180 slides, I'm only going to use about 35 slides in the entire 9 sessions. So this is how I roll. This is how I roll, guys. I hope you are loving the approach. We're going to quietly bring in key issues raised by the textbook and so on in the conversations we have. So notice that the conversations are fairly educational. They might be taking a more storytelling approach and so on, but always follow the story, follow the story, follow the story. And if you don't follow the story, raise your hand and so on. And guys, by the way, should I suspend hands? Let's say we have 20 hands on a question and I suspend half of them. Should it happen that in those 20 hands, you wanted to ask something different, just patch in and say, hey, Mzo, don't suspend me. I have something different. Please, guys, because I assume that those guys are coming in to share an answer to a question I might have asked and so on. So that's how I manage our time. But please, it's our time. It's not just my time. Yeah. Colleagues, the time is almost 2:05. Take 30 minutes break, and I will see you guys at 14:35. Take 30 minutes break, have something to eat, rest, get some fresh air. I'll see you at 14:35, and I'll throw more breaks later on. 14:35.